So this week's topic of Amuna Mondays was asking Hashem for forgiveness upon dark times. And before we begin, the class is dedicated to Elulei Nishmat for Yosef ben Deborah. May his neshama have the ultimate aliyah. So the topic of asking Hashem for forgiveness upon dark times. I chose this topic while I was learning Gate of Trust. I was up to the chapter where it actually describes exactly how a person should react to being in a tough situation or experiencing struggles. And it said that one should beg God for forgiveness in those times. So at first it's kind of like, where's that gonna lead to? Like, what's the reasoning behind that? It's like you're struggling, but you're gonna beg God for forgiveness. And then when I read on, it continued to say that one should do so because because that was the necessary way that they kind of positioned themselves to receive or be in that struggle as the necessary way to learn, and that's the way that Hashem felt that it best be given over, and it obviously was resulting in a struggling way. So you should ask forgiveness from God for pushing it to that point. I mean, I hear the logic behind it, but it is extremely, it just doesn't seem practical. Like, in a situation where you're going through struggle, the last thing you're actually capable of doing is realize you're the reason for it, and that you should actually ask God for forgiveness for putting you in that position, for you putting yourself in that position. And it's kind of I don't know, I think that's a whole different level, and that's not the most practical to an everyday person, yet anyone. So, but I did like the concept of apologizing. So I continued reading and I really couldn't find it anywhere. And I was just like, I don't know why, but I feel like the apologizing is great. I think it is extremely powerful, but not for that reason. That reason is just a very tough reason to wrap your head around, especially as you're the one going through something. Yet when I thought about it, I came up with a different approach to it. I said it should come from an approach of you're begging God for forgiveness, even despite the fact that it may have nothing to do with you. But you find yourself begging God for forgiveness, it will result in being comforted by God. And then I came up with an example. Came up with the example of a teacher in a class. And with no context whatsoever, the teacher just says recess will be indoors. No reasoning behind it, doesn't answer any questions, and that's it. It just operates with that. Recess is going to be indoors. Immediately, the students are obviously, what the heck? We want to go recess, blah, blah, blah. They start pouting, they start getting upset, they start yelling, and that's obviously a default way to respond for a child. Hearing about it, that kind of news would make anybody kind of what the heck? Question it. But the truth is, it's very accurate in life, because the teacher would be God, and things happen, and they don't always have a legitimate explanation behind it. You're not getting the explanation. There's obviously a reason behind everything that God does, but that reason isn't always so clear to you. And because when it's not clear, it's very normal to react in a very similar way. What the heck? Why is this happening to me? Blah, blah, blah. Feel like a victim, all these different things. But the truth is, if the students were to react in a different way, they would stimulate a different response. They would stimulate a different outcome. And what that would be is, instead of freaking out and getting mad and yelling, which is completely normal, they start profusely apologizing to the teacher. I'm so sorry I didn't raise my hand. I'm so sorry I didn't ace the DAS test. I'm sorry I spoke out of turn. And starts in a way like begging for forgiveness, and in doing so, it comes across as like they're beating themselves up a bit. They're very harsh on themselves. It's like, I'm sorry I didn't raise my hand. I'm sorry I called out. I'm sorry this. I'm sorry I didn't ace the test. I'm sorry I didn't get 100. Eventually, what is that going to do? The teacher is going to be, in a way, kind of pushed against the wall and forced to give the explanation out of comfort. It's going to hurt the teacher to see these students beating themselves up about something that has nothing to do with them. The reason they couldn't go to recess outside was because there was a storm. But the teacher at first didn't find it necessary to express that. It's just, at the end of the day, there's no recess outside. The recess is indoors. And obviously the teacher has more information than the student. God has way more information than we do. And not always will we necessarily we're not owed a response. We're not owed an explanation. But at the same time, if we position ourselves to receive a response, Hashem is more than happy to give it. And He will respond. He will give an explanation. He will comfort you, because it's just like you're sitting there beating yourself up and profusely apologizing for something that has nothing to do with you. And as soon as that's being presented, that it's you taking the blame for everything, God will immediately start comforting you. But your eyes and mind need to be open to see the comfort. You can sit there and be like, oh Hashem, how can you do such a thing? And this. Sure, you want to sit there and question God? You can question God all day long. Doesn't matter your status at all. You can be a rabbi, or you can be a completely non-observant person, or you can be an atheist, and you can sit there and question God non-stop. Sure. But the truth is, if you want to look at God as a problem that needs solving, you're going to sit there all day long for the rest of your life, sitting there questioning everything. But the truth is, you have two ways to look at it. You can look at Him as the biggest question in the world. The most difficult question in the world is God. How can He do this? How can He do that? How can He allow this? How can He allow that? Or you can use Him as the most universal, powerful answer in the world. He answers every single potential problem in the world. Any question that you can think of, He's the answer to. And that's strictly you. You get to choose that. Which way do you want to go? You want to look at God as the biggest problem and the biggest issue and biggest question? Sure, go ahead. But where's that going to lead you? It's going to lead you to questioning everything constantly. It's like those people that, they go to a speech and they sit there and ask questions nonstop. And it's like the truth is, they're so focused on their question, they don't actually even pay attention to the answer. As they're asked their question and the person's giving the answer, they're preparing how to ask another question. When it's like, buddy, I'm giving you an answer. I'm answering you. Like, keep your mind open. You don't have to there's people that just operate with questions as opposed to question, answer. And then some just operate on answers. They have no questions. They just answer. And that's an extremely important way to look at things. It's like you can either look at God as the biggest question in the world and the biggest problem in the world, or you can look at Him as the biggest solution in the world. Whatever you're going through, whatever you're experiencing, whatever the problem is, just add God to the equation. It solves it immediately. And that's really what happens. Is like when you're sitting there and going through tough times, it's very easy to sit there and ask God, why? But if you sit there and you realize that God is the answer, God is the answer. And I'm apologizing coming from a place that at the end of the day, God knows what's best for me. And if this happened, apologize. What your fuel for apology is, it doesn't matter if it's beating yourself up. It doesn't matter if holding yourself accountable, or it's just you taking the blame for everything. Because whenever you go a little too much, that's when God's going to come in and be like, okay, it's not all you. Let me express it to you. Let me show you. Let me walk you through it. So that was pretty much the logic behind that conversation and that topic. So again, it's in honor of my little brother, Lule Nishmat, for Yosef Ben Devorah. May his neshama have the ultimate aliyah. See you guys next week.
A few days ago, we got a phone call from an amazing friend that asked if we can ask the community for each one to light an extra Hanukkah in memory for our brothers and sisters that been kidnapped in Israel. I misunderstood them, and I thought that you mean that we're going to light up 138 Hanukkah.